Elena Martinez pressed her palm against the cool glass, watching condensation bloom around her fingers. The antique mirror hung perfectly centered above their new dresser, its ornate silver frame catching afternoon light from the bedroom window. She'd found it at an estate sale 3 blocks away. A steal at $40. "Does it look crooked to you?" she called to Nathan, who was unpacking boxes in the hallway. "Everything looks crooked when you stare at it long enough," he replied, his voice muffled by cardboard. Elena stepped back, admiring how the mirror opened up their cramped bedroom. The previous owners had painted everything beige. This mirror, with its elaborate scrollwork and aged patina, felt like the first real personality they'd added to the house. She turned toward the closet to grab hangers. When she looked back, her breath caught. Her name stretched across the mirror's surface in fresh, crimson letters. ELENA. Each letter perfectly formed, as if written by a careful hand. The blood, because what else could it be, gleamed wet against the glass. "Nathan?" Her voice came out as a whisper. The letters began to drip. Thin rivulets of red traced down the mirror's surface, pooling at the frame's bottom edge. Elena's reflection stared back at her, mouth open, eyes wide with confusion. "Nathan!" she shouted. His footsteps bounded down the hallway. "What's wrong?" Elena pointed at the mirror. "Look." Nathan appeared beside her reflection, his face scrunched in concern. He looked at the mirror, then at Elena, then back at the mirror. "Look at what?" "My name. It's written in..." Elena stopped. The mirror showed only their 2 reflections, standing in their bedroom. No blood, no letters, just glass. "Written in what, babe?" Elena reached toward the mirror's surface. Her fingertips met smooth, cold glass. No wetness, no trace of anything that had been there moments before. "I thought I saw..." She shook her head, and never mind. Moving stress. Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. In the mirror, she watched him study her face with the gentle concern he'd shown during her panic attacks last year. "We can return it if you don't like it," he said. "No, it's beautiful. I'm just tired." But as Nathan kissed her temple and returned to unpacking, Elena caught something in her peripheral vision. A single drop of red, no bigger than a pinhead, clinging to the mirror's bottom edge. The doorbell rang as Elena arranged books on the living room shelves. Through the front window, she could see Mrs. Velasco from next door, holding a casserole dish, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Mrs. Velasco said when Elena opened the door. "I brought arroz con pollo, my grandmother's recipe." "That's so thoughtful." "Please, come in." Mrs. Velasco stepped inside, her sharp eyes immediately scanning the living room. "You've made good progress." The Hendersons left. This place in terrible condition. Hendersons? The previous owners. Lived here 8 years. Mrs. Velasco set the casserole on the kitchen counter, then turned back to Elena. "Terrible what happened to Patricia." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October air. "What happened?" "Found her in the master bedroom, sitting on the floor, staring into some antique mirror. Dead for hours, they think. Maybe longer." Mrs. Velasco's voice dropped to a whisper. Her eyes were bloodshot, like she'd been staring without blinking. "That's horrible." 13 hours, according to the coroner. That's how long she'd been sitting there, just staring. Never moved, never blinked. Just watched her reflection until her heart gave out. Elena's mouth went dry. "An antique mirror?" Silver frame. Fancy scroll work. Beautiful piece, really. I always admired it when Patricia invited me over for tea. Mrs. Velasco paused, studying Elena's face. Why do you ask? We bought a mirror at an estate sale. I assumed it was from the Hendersons' house. Mrs. Velasco's expression darkened. What street? Maple, 3 blocks from here. That was Patricia's sister's house. She inherited all of Patricia's belongings. Mrs. Velasco gripped Elena's arm. Dear, you need to get rid of that mirror. Mrs. Velasco, I appreciate the concern, but Patricia wasn't sick. She was healthy as a horse. Jogged every morning, ate vegetables, took her vitamins. But something about that mirror. Mrs. Velasco shook her head. Her sister called me the night before the estate sale. Said she couldn't sleep with it in the house. Said she felt watched. Eleanor forced a laugh. I'm sure it's just coincidence. Patricia's husband found her sitting 2 feet from the mirror. Her knees were bloody from kneeling on the hardwood for so long, but she never moved. Never called for help, just stared. Mrs. Velasco released Elena's arm and headed toward the door. The casserole reheats well in the oven, she said. And dear, if you change your mind about that mirror, I know someone who hauls junk away. No questions asked. Eleanor stood before the bathroom mirror, brushing her teeth before bed. In the bedroom, Nathan was already under the covers, reading on his tablet. The day had been long, unpacking, organizing, trying to make the house feel like home. She raised her hand to touch her cheek. In the bathroom mirror, her reflection moved normally. Hand up, hand down, perfectly synchronized. But something felt wrong. Eleanor walked back to the bedroom, where the antique mirror hung above the dresser. Nathan's reading light cast a warm glow across the glass surface. She stood directly in front of it and raised her right hand. Her reflection raised its right hand, but not at the same time. Eleanor lowered her hand quickly, then raised it again. The delay was subtle, maybe half a second, but unmistakable. Her reflection followed her movements like an actor slightly behind, on cues. Nathan, look at this. He glanced up from his tablet. What? Watch my reflection. Eleanor waved her hand. Do you see the delay? Nathan set down his tablet and focused on the mirror. Eleanor repeated the motion. Wave, pause, wave again. I don't see anything unusual, he said. It's moving a split second after I move. Eleanor, it's past midnight. You're exhausted. But Elena kept watching. Each gesture she made, her reflection copied with that tiny, impossible delay. Like it was waiting to see what she would do before deciding to follow. Try it yourself, she said. Nathan sighed, but he stood beside her and waved at the mirror. His reflection waved back in perfect synchronization. See? Normal mirror. Eleanor stared at her own reflection. It stared back with dark, tired eyes. She lifted her hand slowly, watching as her reflection did the same. One heartbeat later. I'm going to sleep, Nathan said, climbing back into bed. But Eleanor remained standing before the mirror, raising and lowering her hand, watching her reflection play follow the leader in the glass. The delay never changed, always half a second, always waiting, as if something behind the glass was learning her movements, studying them, memorizing them for later use. Nathan woke to the sound of glass cracking. The bedroom was dark, save for the green glow of their alarm clock reading 3:17 a.m. He blinked, orienting himself in the unfamiliar room, then noticed the thin line of light seeping from under the bathroom door. Eleanor? He whispered. No response. Nathan slipped out of bed and padded toward the bathroom. The door was closed, but he could hear water running. He knocked gently. "Babe? Everything okay?" The water stopped. Silence stretched for several heartbeats before Elena's voice came through the door, strained and confused. "Nathan, come here, but don't turn on any lights." He pushed open the door. Elena stood before the bathroom mirror in her pajamas, her face pale in the moonlight streaming through the small window. The mirror's surface was fogged with steam, but something dark was etched across the condensation. Letters, spelling out Nathan, in what looked like fingertip marks. But the marks were on the inside of the mirror, behind the glass, as if someone had written from within. "I came in to get some water," Elena whispered. "The mirror was clear when I walked in." Then the steam built up and disappeared. Nathan reached toward the glass. The letters were perfectly formed, each one distinct and deliberate. His fingertip touched the mirror's surface. Cold, smooth, normal. "It's just condensation playing tricks," he said. But his voice lacked conviction. Elena shook her head. "Watch." She wiped her palm across the mirror, clearing away the steam. The glass revealed their two reflections, standing close together in the small bathroom. Normal. Expected. Then steam began forming again, as if the mirror itself was breathing warm air onto the glass. Within seconds, the letters reappeared in the exact same spots. Nathan. "That's impossible," Nathan said. "The heating isn't even on." "Where's the steam coming from?" Nathan touched the mirror again. The glass felt ice cold, not warm enough to create condensation. Yet the steam continued to build, and the letters remained crisp and clear, as if someone behind the glass was carefully tracing each one. "We're calling someone in the morning," Elena said. "A glass repair company. This mirror is defective." But as they turned to leave, Nathan caught movement in his peripheral vision. In the mirror's surface, their reflections weren't following them toward the door. They remained standing in place, watching Nathan and Elena leave. He spun around to look again, but the mirror showed only their bathroom, empty and normal. Breakfast was quiet. Elena pushed scrambled eggs around her plate while Nathan scrolled through local handyman services on his phone. Neither mentioned what they'd seen the night before, as if speaking about it might make it real. "I'll be late tonight," Nathan said, kissing Elena's forehead. "Board meeting ran long, so we're starting the quarterly review at 7. I'll probably be asleep when you get home." After Nathan left, Elena tried to focus on work calls and unpacking the remaining boxes. But every reflective surface in the house seemed to demand her attention. The toaster in the kitchen, her laptop screen when it went dark, even the black screen of the television. At 3 p.m., she walked into their bedroom to put away laundry and froze. The antique mirror no longer showed her reflection standing in front of the dresser. Instead, it showed their daughter's bedroom from their old house, the room they'd left behind 3 states away when Nathan's job transferred them here. Pink walls, stuffed animals arranged on the bed, drawings taped to the closet door. Elena blinked hard and looked again. The mirror showed her own reflection, normal and expected. But for just a moment, she could have sworn she'd seen 9-year-old Sophia sitting on her old bedroom floor, playing with dolls. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from her daughter. "Mom, I miss my room. The new school is weird and nobody likes me." Elena stared at the message, then back at the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but something was wrong with her eyes. They looked too bright, too wide, like someone who'd been staring without blinking for too long. She left the bedroom and didn't return until Nathan came home. "How was the meeting?" she asked, helping him out of his coat. "Brutal. Richardson's pushing for layoffs, and everyone's on edge." Nathan loosened his tie. "How was your day?" "Fine." Quiet. Nathan headed upstairs to change clothes. Elena heard his footsteps cross the bedroom floor, then stop abruptly. "Elena," he called down. His voice was tight, controlled. "Could you come up here?" She found him standing in front of this antique mirror, still wearing his work clothes. His face was pale, and his hands were trembling slightly. "Look at the dresser," he said. Elena followed his gaze. Their wooden dresser sat beneath the mirror, exactly where they'd placed it yesterday. Normal, unremarkable. "I don't see anything unusual." "Look at the dresser in the mirror." Elena focused on the mirror's reflection of their dresser. It showed the same piece of furniture, but the wood was charred and blackened, as if it had been in a fire. Smoke stains streaked up the wall behind it, and the mirror's frame was cracked and tarnished. "That's not our dresser," Elena whispered. "But it's the same dresser. Same position, same everything. Just burned." Elena reached out to touch the actual dresser. The wood was smooth and undamaged, exactly as it had been since they'd bought it 2 years ago. But in the mirror, her hand touched scorched, brittle wood that looked ready to crumble. "We need to call someone," Nathan said. "Who? What would we even say?" Before Nathan could answer, Elena's phone rang. Unknown, a number. "Hello?" she answered. Static crackled through the line, followed by a child's voice, distant and echoing, as if speaking from far away. "Mommy? The mirror is showing me scary things." Elena's blood turned to ice. "Sophia?" But Sophia was 3 states away, staying with Elena's mother while they settled into the new house. Elena had spoken to her daughter just that afternoon. "Mommy, there are people in the mirror who look like you and Daddy, but they're not you. They have burns all over their faces." The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, then at Nathan, who had been listening to every word. "Call your mother," he said. "Now?" Elena dialed with shaking fingers. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Hi, sweetheart. How's the new house?" "Mom, is Sophia there?" "Of course. She's been in her room all afternoon, playing with that dollhouse you sent. Why? Can you check on her? Please?" Elena heard footsteps, a door opening, then her mother's voice calling Sophia's name. A pause. Then her daughter's bright, normal voice responding from her room. "She's fine, Elena. Drawing pictures of your new house. She's excited to visit next month." Elena hung up, her hands still trembling. "Sophia's been with your mother all day," Nathan said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." They both turned back to the mirror. It showed their normal bedroom, undamaged and familiar. But in the reflection, Elena noticed something that made her stomach clench. Their bed was unmade and covered in ash, as if 2 bodies had been lying there while a fire burned around them. Elena couldn't move her head. She'd been brushing her hair before bed when it happened. Some invisible force gripped her skull, holding it in place, facing the antique mirror. Her hands hung frozen at her sides, the brush clattering to the floor. "Nathan?" She tried to call, but her voice came out as a whisper. In the mirror, she watched Nathan enter the bedroom behind her, but he moved wrong. His steps were too deliberate, too measured, like someone imitating how Nathan walked. He approached her reflection and placed his hands on her reflected shoulders. "Beautiful mirror," Nathan's reflection said. But Nathan's real voice came from the hallway downstairs. "Elena? Did you say something?" The Nathan in the mirror smiled with too many teeth. Elena tried to turn around to look at the real Nathan downstairs, but the invisible grip tightened. Her neck muscles strained against the force holding her in place. In the glass, Nathan's reflection leaned close to her ear. "We've been waiting so long for new faces." The real Nathan's footsteps climbed the stairs. Elena watched in the mirror as he appeared in the bedroom doorway, but his reflection didn't match his movements. While the real Nathan looked concerned and approached her normally, his reflection stood perfectly still, grinning. "Babe, why are you just standing there?" the real Nathan asked. Elena couldn't turn to face him. The force held her head locked in position, staring into the mirror. She watched Nathan's actual reflection appear beside the fake one. Two Nathans standing behind her in the glass. "I can't move," Elena managed to say. Nathan reached for her shoulders, and Elena felt his warm hands on her real body. But in the mirror, she watched the fake Nathan reach for her at the same time. When both hands touched her shoulders, pain shot through her skull. "Elena, what's wrong?" "You're shaking." The fake Nathan in the mirror mouthed different words. "Tell him everything's fine." Elena fought against the compulsion, but the words spilled out anyway. "Everything's fine. Just tired." Nathan's concerned face appeared beside hers in the mirror, studying her reflection. "You don't look fine." In the glass, Elena watched a completely different bedroom unfold behind them. The walls were covered in family photos, but the faces in the pictures were burned away, leaving only charred holes where eyes and mouths should be. She tried to tell Nathan what she was seeing, but her voice wouldn't obey. "Look behind us," she finally gasped. Nathan turned to look at their actual bedroom. Normal walls, normal furniture. "I don't see anything." But Elena was trapped, watching the mirror's version, where shadow figures moved through the burned photo frames, reaching toward the glass from the other side. "The mirror," she whispered. "What do you see in the mirror?" Nathan focused on their reflection. "I see us. You look pale, and you're trembling." The fake Nathan in the glass was no longer pretending to be Nathan. His face stretched and elongated, features blurring like melted wax. Other figures crowded behind him. Men, women, children, all with the same melted, shifting faces. "Nathan, we have to break it." "Break what?" "The mirror. Now, before..." The invisible force released her, suddenly. Elena stumbled backward into Nathan's arms, gasping. The mirror showed their normal reflection again, but she could swear she saw shadows moving at the edges of the frame. "We're getting rid of it tonight," Nathan said, steadying her. But when Elena looked into any reflective surface, Nathan's watch face, the bedroom window, even the black screen of her phone, she saw the same thing. The burned bedroom, the melted faces, the shadow figures reaching toward her from behind the glass. "Nathan," she whispered, "look at your watch." He glanced down at his wrist. "What about it?" "What do you see in the reflection?" "My face, the ceiling light, normal stuff." Elena stared at the watch face and saw the burned bedroom, the reaching shadows, the fake Nathan with his impossibly wide grin. Every reflection in the house showed the same alternate reality, the same horror lurking just behind the glass. "It's not just the mirror anymore," she said. Nathan followed her gaze to his watch, then to the dark window, then to her phone screen. His expression shifted from concern to confusion to growing fear. "Elena, are you saying you see something different in every reflection?" Before she could answer, a sound echoed through the house. Crying, a child's voice, sobbing and calling for help. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, surrounding them. "Mommy? Daddy? I'm trapped. I can't get out." Elena's blood froze. "That's Sophia. Sophia's in another state. Mommy, please. The people here have burned faces and they won't let me leave." The crying grew louder, more desperate. Elena ran toward the sound, but it seemed to come from inside the walls themselves. Nathan followed, both of them calling Sophia's name. The crying led them back to the antique mirror. In the glass, Elena saw their daughter standing in a room identical to their bedroom, but everything was jarred and smoking. Sophia pressed her small hands against the mirror's surface from the inside, her face streaked with tears. "I walked through the mirror in Grandma's house," Sophia cried. "Now I can't get back." Elena pressed her palms against the mirror's surface, where Sophia's hands met hers from the other side. The glass felt warm, pulsing like living skin. "We're going to get you out, baby," Elena whispered. Nathan grabbed a chair, raising it above his head. "Stand back." The chair struck the mirror with a thunderous crack, but the glass didn't shatter. Instead, it rippled like water. And Nathan's reflection smiled back at him while the real Nathan staggered from the impact. "It's not glass anymore," Elena said, watching her hand sink slightly into the mirror's surface. "It's a doorway." Sophia's cries grew fainter, as if she was being pulled deeper into whatever lay beyond the reflection. Elena pushed her hand further into the warm, yielding surface. Her arm disappeared up to the elbow. "Elena, don't..." But she was already stepping forward, one foot disappearing into the mirror like stepping into thick honey. The sensation was neither cold nor warm, just wrong in a way that made her teeth ache. "If something happens to me, call the fire department," she said. "Tell them there's been an accident at this address." Nathan grabbed her arm. "What kind of accident?" Elena met his eyes in the reflection. "The kind that happened before we moved here." She pulled herself through the mirror. The other side looked exactly like their bedroom, but the air tasted of smoke and copper. Sophia sat huddled in the corner, surrounded by figures that had once been people. Their faces were melted ruins, features sliding like warm candle wax, but their eyes remained perfectly intact and aware. "Mommy?" Sophia ran to Elena, who swept her daughter into her arms. One of the burnt figures stepped forward, a woman whose mouth was a horizontal gash across what remained of her face. "You don't understand," the figure said in Patricia Henderson's voice. "We're not the trapped ones." Elena backed toward where the mirror should be, but found only solid wall. "What do you mean?" "The mirror doesn't trap souls in this room," Patricia continued. "It traps souls in your room. We're the ones who escaped." Elena's blood turned to ice. "Escaped from what?" Patricia pointed to the wall where Elena had entered. Through what looked like a window, Elena could see into her real bedroom. Nathan stood there, calling her name, but his movements were wrong, too stiff, too deliberate. "That's not Nathan," Patricia said. "That's what replaced Nathan 3 days ago, just like something replaced Elena 2 days ago." "But I'm Elena." "No." Patricia's melted features twisted into something resembling sympathy. "You're Elena's reflection, the real Elena, and Nathan died in the house fire." The fire that started when they tried to destroy the mirror. Elena stared through the window at Nathan calling her name. His face showed the right expressions, the right concern, but his eyes were flat and empty. Every family that buys the mirror goes through the same cycle, Patricia continued. First, you see the warnings. Then the reflections start acting independently. Then the mirror spreads to every reflective surface. Finally, it trades you with your reflection. Then who am I? A copy, living the life of someone who's already dead. Elena looked down at Sophia in her arms. Is she... Sophia's still alive. She's 3 states away with her grandmother, just like you remember. But her reflection got curious and stepped through a mirror in your mother's house. Elena felt the truth settling into her bones like ice. Every memory she had of the past week felt thin and artificial, like someone else's experiences downloaded into her mind. How long have we been dead? Elena and Nathan Martinez died 4 days after hanging the mirror. Carbon monoxide poisoning from a gas leak that started a small electrical fire. The fire department found their bodies in bed. Through the window, Elena watched Nathan place flowers on the dresser, fresh roses she'd never seen before. His movements were mechanical, rehearsed. "He's decorating our grave," she whispered. Patricia nodded. The reflections always do that. They think it makes them more convincing. Elena set Sophia down and pressed her face to the window. In the real world, Nathan was hanging a picture on the wall, a photo of Elena smiling. But Elena had no memory of that photo being taken. The house never wanted to be empty, Patricia said softly. So it fills itself with echoes of the dead. Elena watched Nathan smile at the photograph, his eyes still flat and lifeless. The mirror had never been haunted. They were the haunting.